Calling this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded by the PBD Cable Television Commission's recording secretary. The matters listed below are those reasonably anticipated by the chairperson which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Tom, second by Mick. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Public comments? Nothing from Jim. Let's go to election of officers. So in January, this is when we do election of officers, committee assignments, and voting order. So as of now, the officers are, I am chairperson, who is appointed, so to speak, by the mayor. The vice chair is Tom, and our acting secretary right now is Tom. It was Jesse, but Jesse had to leave the commission, so Tom took over, thankfully. And our treasurer is Kevin. So what we need to know is if anybody wants to make a motion to nominate somebody else for a particular position, wants to take over a particular position, wants to keep the positions. It's what everyone says.
I'd like to make a motion to keep the vice chair position.
Okay.
Okay.
Any discussion on that?
In favor.
In favor of that?
Okay.
Discussion.
Do we have a second? We have a second, right? Okay.
Okay.
I would
How
I would make a motion to keep everything the same.
Okay.
Only one thing.
Well, we have the secretary is actually open
We
because
need
he's
to-
been acting. Thomas has been acting that part. So we'd like to see if somebody else might want to take that over. I know John and Kevin aren't here. Kevin is our treasurer as of present time. So I think, do we all agree on keeping money man, Kevin, the treasurer? So that
Someone
being
make a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Can you make a motion?
I don't think so.
You
Somebody else
can't,
has.
you have a motion on the floor, you have to vote on it before you can make another motion, I believe.
Okay, so a motion for what?
You have a motion for Tom.
Oh, okay, so we,
Does Tom accept?
oh,
I accept.
okay.
Okay. That's
All
our
those in
discussion.
favor? Okay.
Okay.
And then someone made a motion for Kevin. I don't think I can make a motion, so why don't you do that, Tom?
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to have Kevin Donovan maintain the secretary, the treasurer position.
Do we have a
Second.
second on that from Mick? Discussion, all those in favor? Okay. And secretary, do we have any nominations or anybody would like to nominate themselves for secretary position?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to have Dan Loring be secretary.
We have a second on that?
Second.
Mick second that. Discussion, all those in favor? Okay, thank you, Dan. We'll have Tom do this for tonight, and then you can take over next time. All right, thank you. So now we have all our positions, the officers, committee assignments. So let me just see who was on what before, because now we have some new members. So the executive committee stays as it is now, which would be myself, Tom vice chair, we'll have Dan as our secretary, and then Kevin will be the treasurer. Then other one, technical and grievance. David right now is our chair. David, would you like to continue in that position?
Certainly.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we have David Teitelbaum head up the technical and grievance committee.
Okay, seconded by Mick, and then all discussion, all those in favor? Okay, now, I know we have some people that are already on that, so I think we've had, I think you're on?
I'm on there.
Technical grievance, and I think we have John.
I'm also on there.
You're on there, okay, so, all right, so let me just write this down. So we have Mick, and we have John, and we have,
Melissa,
yes?
can you please state all of the subcommittees so Dan, a new member, can understand
Yeah,
what they
so
all are,
there's
just in
only,
case there's
well, there's
interest?
just, the executive is already, that's fulfilled. The technical and grievance, and then there's public access. So there's really only two other committees. We used to have three, and then we kind of condensed that. So technical and grievance or public access. So right now on technical and grievance, we have David as our chair. We have Tom, Mick, and John. And for public access, we have Kevin as our chair. And who else is on that?
I think I said on that.
Are you on that,
I
David?
think so, but since
Let
we
me
haven't
look.
really acted.
No, I don't think so. Jesse was on it. Maybe you were. This is an old one. Okay, so, well, I'd like to get Dan and Mick on these committees. So it doesn't have to be public access. It can be both. It can be technical, whichever you...
I think that Dan's got a good technical background. He might
Sounds
be
good.
good on the technical committee as well,
Okay, so
so.
let's add him to that. And Mick, you're already on technical.
I'd be happy to be on both.
Okay, so you're gonna be on both. And David, you were on public access, so I'll keep you there? Yes?
Sure thing.
Okay. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. So maybe another one on public access.
You might as well throw me on there if you want.
Okay, so I'll put Tom on there. Okay, so let me recap that. So we have for technical and grievance, David chair. We have Tom, Mick, John, and Dan. And for the public access, we have Kevin as chair, Mick, David, and Tom, correct?
Okay, do we need to make a motion on this? And vote it in?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We basically just choose them.
Okay.
Let people decide what committee they'd like to.
I'm going to make a
Yeah.
motion to accept the slate as read.
Okay, I'd like to
Second
second
by
that.
Tom, discussion, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. So for Dan, I think Mick, you know how this works, but for Dan, so those committees, sometimes we have to have like subcommittees, like if there's a grievance or something special, we may call like the meeting at 6:30 and that committee would get involved
Okay.
and be a part of that and then report back to the whole. We haven't had too many of them, but later on in the meeting, I'm going to talk about proof of performance, and that also has a little bit to do with it. So we'll get into that after. But basically, that's what those committees serve as. Okay, voting order. So we have,
Gotta mix those up pretty good.
yeah, I don't have anything to put it in. Wait a minute. My glass. Is that always works? There we go.
You sure
Look at
that's
that.
gonna mix them okay?
Yeah, this is fine. Can't see what numbers are on here.
Get an ECU angle on that.
Okay. Go ahead, pick a number.
Oh,
Very resourceful.
number 3,
Number 6.
good number.
Okay, so what'd you get, 3?
Yeah,
Nick,
Four.
what'd you get?
6.
I'm 6.
6?
Dan?
Dan? 4. David? Okay, and why don't you give me that down and I'll pick one for each of Kevin and,
You
let's
get
see,
number
this will be
4?
for
Yeah.
Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah,
When I first looked at it, that was
It
a
was
one.
one, yes.
1.
Okay, Kevin's 1, and John is, I hopefully 2. If we did this correct.
That's 2, yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay,
All
does
right,
anybody
and
want to keep
And
their
then you
number?
put me as 7.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm last. Okay, good. All right, let's go on to a motion to approve the minutes of December 13th, 2017.
So moved.
Okay, by Mick, seconded by David. All right, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read, but discussion? David, did you read them?
Looking at it now.
I'll give everyone a minute or two.
Dan, I want to point out that these go underneath the glass up in the hallway,
Oh, okay.
so people can see them publicly, these
Okay.
minutes, so. I saw them for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Are these the minutes that you draw up?
Yeah.
So it basically follows the same pattern. The minutes, like there's the A, B, C, and then we just, sometimes there's extra things, but. Any discussion on minutes?
One second
Am I
here.
waiting for you to?
No, I'm all set.
Nope, good.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you. All right, so moving on to correspondence, we have a motion to approve the correspondence by Tom.
Motion to accept.
Seconded by Mick. Discussion on this. So, I did receive this. I received a different letter, not a different letter, but a letter somewhat informally before this, from Jane. And, so she retired, which I had been saying for what, the last year and a half, but she finally retired. So as you can see on this letter, Jerry, who was above her, I don't know this Denise Mason, but they are not taking over her position. They're just temporarily doing parts of her job. I believe they're finding a replacement for Jane. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet, but as far as I know, it hasn't. So, so I know Jerry. I've met Jerry a couple times. I do not know Denise, but I will probably reach out to her and just, you know, introduce myself and let her know that I may be contacting her with any questions the commission has, or, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't know Denise's position either. It doesn't state that. Obviously, you can see Jerry's position. He's the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs. So, any discussion on this?
Is there any timeframe that we're
hire
to hire somebody? And,
Then-
you know, in the meantime, who do we actually deal with and
We
communicate?
deal with either Jerry or this woman, Denise. So I'll reach out to both of them. I mean, Jerry, I know, so.
All right.
I did, I'm going to get to this further down in into the agenda, but I did have a long conversation with Jane, not really regarding her retirement, but I left it on a good note with her as far as I wished her well from the commission in her retirement and so on and so forth. But, so it was a lengthy discussion, but really had to do with something that we're going to talk about in old business. So.
Why is it highlighted in red, temporary contract change? Was she noted specifically by name in the contract?
What's that? Say that again?
Was Jane a by name note in the contract?
It says contact.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Contact.
it's in my glasses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I will let the commission know if there is a person hired in her position. I would find out, hopefully, but I will reach out to both Denise and Jerry to say that I will be contacting them if we have issues, questions, concerns. So that is that. All right, let's move on to committee reports. Technical and grievance. David.
Nothing at this time, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. Public access and community relations, Kevin's not here. He emailed me earlier, he didn't have anything, so we'll put nothing at this time. Let's move on to executive committee. Okay, so just a couple things. We're actively seeking some new members too. Right now, we have 7 members. The commission can go up to 10, which meaning 7 are regular members, and then 3 are alternates, but they attend the meetings and everything else, and they would take the place in voting if one of us isn't here. So if you know of anybody else, I know I've said this before, if anybody is watching the commission tonight, we are actively seeking new members. So if you have an interest in being on this commission, then please contact the mayor's office. And I think I emailed Mary about that too, to see if the mayor, because I thought he had said at one point that he had 1 or 2 people, but I'll follow up on that. Also, I think we discussed this last time, that a few of us were up for renewal on our term. So I was one of them. Were you one, Mick?
I was, yeah.
Okay, and I think there was a third one. But anyway, I came here, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I got sworn in again. So how about yourself, Mick? Did
Not
you?
yet.
Not yet. Okay, so just make sure you
Yep.
do that at some point.
Do we know where we are in the cycle as far as who needs to,
It said it on that.
Okay.
We had it last time, and you got a
Yeah,
letter
yeah.
in your mail if yours was up for renewal.
Sure.
To go in a couple weeks or whatever to just get sworn in. And also, Executive Committee, I did email Mary about if there's any new RCN meetings scheduled, and there are none as of yet. But I have asked if I, will be invited to those, and she said most certainly, as well as if there's, room for commission members to come, but there is nothing yet. So, just to report on that. Okay, let's move on to Treasurer's Report. I don't know why she has this updated status of appropriation. I think that was from last time, because we don't have anything else in here. So, no new report on that.
on treasurer's report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to old business. So the Comcast rep, obviously, we don't have anyone here, and Jane has now retired, so we discussed this in our correspondence.
Melissa, when you do reach out to Jerry
Yeah, I'm
and
gonna
Denise.
ask if there's a time frame for, is that what you're gonna say?
Well, no. Invite them to come to our commission meetings.
Sure.
Have somebody come in or somebody in their stead if they need
Okay,
to.
I will, thank you, good suggestion. Okay, concern list, any changes, additions to our concern list, which is included in your agenda?
Just as a query, I know that Tom and I were discussing and that he had some problems during recent storm. Are we aware of any kind of problematic system-wide due to the storm
Of the storm?
on the system,
Okay.
video or telephony or otherwise?
I haven't heard anything.
But we can't talk about
I'm just
telephony.
asking.
Right.
just-
I've had the problem with my cable TV going out. It took out all our service. There was nothing in cable TV, telephone, and internet. We can only discuss cable TV.
I'm aware.
So I did open up a ticket. And
Was
the
this
reason,
during the storm?
Yeah, and the reason I did this was I realized they're going to be working on these things.
Yeah.
But David brought to light a very good point when we were looking at metrics at the end of the year that come from Comcast, that they only measure tickets.
Right.
So we have a situation like this. I says, you know what? Open up a ticket, please.
Right.
They did. They didn't give me a reference number or anything like that for the ticket, but we need to do things like that to keep Comcast honest, I believe.
So encouraging subscribers to call it in if there is, even if it's an outage or a widespread outage, or if it's a storm-related thing or whatever the case may be, encouraging them to call and to open up a ticket so that we're made more aware of problems that are going on in the system. So that's a good point. Was it resolved?
It was resolved.
Okay. Thankfully. Okay. So let's move on to site visit to the Higgins Middle School update. Okay, so this was the phone call that I had with Jane because we were going back and forth with emails. So the last time we met, we discussed the fact that it was either going to be a yes or a no to a site visit to see the new fiber wiring at the Higgins slash PAT. And so the commission decided to just basically ask Jane, is it a yes or a no, not somewhere in between. So I did. I sent my email, and then we, of course, did the back and forth. And then finally she said, are you available to talk? And so a couple days later, we did finally talk. And so the conversation pretty much went the way I suspected it was going to go. So these are, this isn't exactly quoted, but this is what the gist of it was that they can't do this they can't, in other words, set up these types of meetings for all buildings, for all cities, because this would be taking too much time and resources on Comcast's part. And this would also set a precedent if they did this. So, like for all of the contracts that they have and all new wiring to all new buildings, if they took the time to show us all the wiring that's going on, not just our city, but whatever other cities are getting new wiring. This is what Jane said to me. So I said to her, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Yes, we have a commission, and we're an active commission. We meet once a month, and we really discuss a lot of things, not just problems with whatever. We discuss a lot of different things. And I said, how many communities are you overseeing? This was to Jane. And she had over 40 communities. I said, how many are active commissions? 2 out of over 40. So I said to her, well, I'm not looking to set a precedent. I said, but if you only have a couple of communities that are active and we're making this request to come and look at this new wiring, I don't know why this would be a big
Why is it a big
issue.
deal?
Right. It's not like you have 40 other communities asking you to do this. I said, this was this was part of our new license. It was a little bit more unusual because we now got rid of our loop, the iNet, and now we had Comcast doing this wiring with this 2-year time frame to complete, 8 or 9 buildings that we had on our list. And I said to her, it doesn't spell it out in the contract that we have to go and take a look at this. However, the commission is overseeing what goes on in the contract. We're supposed to be keeping tabs on, is this being followed? Is the money coming in? All these other things. So we can't very well know just by, we know that it's working, the system, because they've had live meetings, so we know that. But as far as contractual and what this commission does is to go and actually see when new wiring is done. And I posed it to her that way, just saying that, it is maybe not spelled out in black and white in the contract, but under good faith that this would be something that would be good for Comcast to be able to do this for the city, to be able to show them the new wiring when it's complete so that we know everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, which, by the way, I reminded her that by July, all of these other 8 or so buildings need to be wired. So I'm going to be following up on that as well to make sure that that is going as planned. Jane had a lot of the usual comebacks of the way she skirted many issues in our contract and the way they interpret things and the way we interpret things. So I put it to her this way. I said, well, what if we now go to the mayor and ask him to send a letter to Comcast to ask him to be able to do this? So basically, Jane is out. So Jane, this was the last week of her, this is basically when I spoke to her, like right before the holidays, or right after that she was going to be now done with this position. So she wasn't going to say what would happen with that, but now we have two other people to contact, Jerry and Denise. So I'm going to put it to the commission. What would you like me to do from this point on? Because nothing has been set up, and now Jane is gone. So,
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
first, I want to say that, Comcast is working for us in this city, and the excuse of there are 40 communities that Jane represents, and they couldn't possibly give the attention to all these communities is telling me that they're not resourced well enough to give the attention required for community relations. And that's her job, right? Government community relations. So they are not resourced well enough to do their job. And whenever we do have wiring, we should be there. There's no question about it. All right. Maybe this is something that Comcast needs to work on in the spirit of continuous improvement of running a corporation. In some operations like this, it's like manufacturing. It's a type of a process where they can keep improving it, like any industry. If the customer wants to see the wiring,
right.
then they should make a note of it and say, a customer wants to see the wiring. How can we make this happen with the resources we have? And they should say to themselves, Comcast, when we do the wiring, we'll let them know when we're going to do that and invite them to come along and take a look at the wiring going in. And maybe they can do it all at once so they don't have to waste their time and come back if they're under-resourced and understaffed. So I find that a little bit disturbing, because when you take a look at how much money Comcast makes and how big they are, just to spend a half an hour to come down and look in a closet, when they have people on the ground in this area, I find it a little bit confusing to understand how they possibly can't give us a half hour of attention. And I find that insulting. And it's almost like the conversation that happens now with this relationships manager, whatever, Jane. It always seems to be defensive on Comcast's part.
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't make us feel good as a customer.
Right.
And we
agree.
really don't have a good relationship when it comes to that kind of behavior
Right.
and that exchange.
Right. I feel the same.
So, maybe with the communications, I might suggest is that when you talk to Jerry and Denise and introduce yourself, mention to them that, we'll try to make this convenient for you, although it's not your part to do so. But when wiring does go in, can you please let us know and invite us to go and see that wiring going in, so you don't have to waste your time and reschedule people to come back out a second time.
Right.
I still find it disturbing with how big Comcast is that they can't find half an hour to let somebody into a closet and look.
To that statement, we represent the mayor. These are city buildings. We have every right to be in those buildings under the direction of the mayor to observe what is being installed for the city. So to tell the commission that, oh, you can't be there, that's more than just disturbing. It's inappropriate. They have no right whatsoever to direct a city entity as to where they can and cannot be to observe something. And given that,
I think it's not so much observing. I think it was that the setting up of this meeting, because the wiring was obviously already done, to go and see what they've actually done. So to me, it seems like, what are they hiding? Like, if it's something, if the wiring's done correctly and everything is operational, why wouldn't we be able to go and see it? I don't know.
Is this another
Well, I
case?
don't-
Oh, good, John. No.
I don't think it's more of a, we can't go and see it. They're not going to supply an engineer to come out
Right.
to explain things.
Right.
Which
is what she was implying, that it would take too much resources and time and all this other stuff. Okay, so I get part of that, but
But she offered that.
But she offered
When Beck
it.
and I were there, she offered that to us.
right.
And
It's probably better if we go on site and we
have an engineer come
Right.
out and they can explain it
Right.
much better than I can, because
Right.
she was
She's
not a
not
technical person.
That's right.
She had no idea what the plans were.
Right, but
And-
she did offer that, which is why this
Absolutely.
whole
And I-
thing got started.
And I think in the spirit of her nice letter that we received, that I hopefully think this is an opportunity that Jerry and Denise may be able to improve the relationship
Yeah.
that we currently have, because quite honestly did not have a lot of success getting anything approved through Jane
You're right.
in almost any facet that we engaged her
That's
with.
right.
And I think as we move forward, hopefully Jerry and Denise can take up that mantle and actually move it forward instead of just keeping it where
Mm-hmm. No,
it is.
I agree. This would
'Cause
be a good opportunity to.
Business as usual right now is not acceptable in my opinion, with the way Comcast or Xfinity or whomever has been handling our business relationship.
I agree.
And we're not we may not be the biggest consumer of their resources, but we give them a lot of money. And they should return service accordingly.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Sure.
I'm just making some notes for myself.
No phone numbers.
Okay. So I think what I will do before we have to send a letter or have the mayor send, because I don't really want to have to do that, but this is definitely an opportunity at this point to reach out to Jerry and Denise, besides introducing myself, inviting them to meetings, but as a chance to improve these community relations that we
Absolutely.
have with them, and to be more, open and forthcoming on, from this point on.
And maybe they could come and give us a primer of how, I don't know if this is the way Jane did it, or if this is a company procedural thing, or
Yep.
maybe Jerry and Denise do it very differently.
Yep.
And they would be more than welcome to be more involved.
Exactly. I agree. Anybody else? By the way, thank you, John, for.
Sorry, today was, with school being canceled and Peabody and Nutland, it kind of became a mess.
That's okay.
Thanks.
I appreciate you coming in, though. Anybody else have anything to add about this? But so this is going into my email with Jerry and Denise to try to forge a somewhat, mutual relationship here so that we can move forward and see if we can get this squared away. Okay, agreed? Okay.
Just one second.
Sure.
What was John's voting order, by the way, now that he's here?
Oh, what was?
We already pulled for
We
the voting
What I
order.
did.
I'm told.
I think you're one or two, I think.
Yeah.
No, John, you got number 2.
Oh, John. sorry.
Louis,
Kevin's number one.
That's the best
He
in
wants to
the
hear it.
Yankee swap.
No, we're not going to go there. Waiting for that to come
And
up.
we, just to let you know, we did committees, and I think
did I make it as well?
we kept you on technical and grievance, so you're on there as well. All right, so let's move on to the last item I have in old business, which is proof of performance. I don't know how this was handled in previous times when a new contract, even though I was here for the last contract, I don't know how we did this, because I'll explain for people that don't know that when proof of performance we usually have in May, and it's just like a listing of all the items that we need to check off that Comcast has either sent checks into the city or has done certain things required in the license, kind of as an overseeing of their obligations in the contract. So the old checklist, which we had, obviously is not going to be able to match up to the new license that we have. So I don't know, and I'm going to have to reach out to Mary unless anybody remembers this, how we created this new checklist. Did anybody remember
I
this?
think
David?
it was a case of, if we look at all the shalls, that would be it. But I think if you go through the contract and you note the sections, major and minor sections.
Yep.
If you remember, the checklist was major, minor sections.
Okay,
Do they do this? Do they do this?
Right.
Do they do this? Are all the shalls taken care of?
Right.
And the only thing that was of a variable nature was the technical, which is unfortunately, with one exception, no longer in the contract because they've gone to digital from analog and there's no longer an FCC spec,
Right.
with the exception of noise, leakage rather. It's all a case of, did they get the check in? Have they
right.
filed the
There's
form?
forms that they have to
Right.
send us and all
Yes.
that.
Do they
So
have-
I'm just gonna reach out to Mary and say, is this something that the commission, we have to do as a whole and put this together? Or is this something that she does or something that Peter would do? I'm not sure I don't know at this point. I really don't know. I don't know why, because I was here for the last contract, but I don't know how we did it. That was 10 years, more
think
than
Mary-
10 years ago.
I think Mary kept the list, the master list.
She has it, yeah,
And
she
she
definitely
updated
does.
every year.
Yes,
But that was just as far as I know, it was just a date. I don't know who generated that list.
I don't know.
Was it Milt? Was it Mary?
I don't think so. I suspect that it was probably Peter. I'm suspecting.
I
He
don't,
ripped through the contract and found their,
These are what your
Yeah.
obligations are due to the contract, and here's a
I mean,
checklist.
we
So
could do that ourselves.
Let
We
me
could
ask,
probably do it.
We could take the old contract, the old checklist,
Right.
and look at the new contract and
we
just
can.
do an evaluation.
It would be okay to do that. But let me, I'll check with Mary. This is why I'm bringing it up now, because it's January. So if it's something we're going to work on as a whole, as the commission, we could do this like next month if I find out that this is what we should do. And because usually we send it out, if it's May, we usually send the letters to Comcast in March, like 2 months before. And then they have, I believe, was it 60 days to respond, or 30? Is it 30 or 60 days to respond to those, getting us the forms, the Form 500, all these other things that we're supposed to get from, that's generated.
It's 30 days, but I'm not,
So I think we send them out in March, which is why I would like to
yeah.
get this going so that we have this checklist before, because we did not have this proof of performance last year, as you remember, because the whole contract and everything was so consuming. So, are you looking in through the contract to see if there's something that says
I
it?
think Nick is, yeah.
Okay. Nick's gonna investigate.
How the kids say? How the kids say?
I just come up with music. They call it contract and it's amendment.
This will take a while, so if you want to move on.
Okay, well, we don't have much to go, so if you find something. In the meantime, I think the way I'll handle it is by asking Mary how we should handle this, if we should do it ourselves, if Peter did this, if this is something that has to be done by him, I don't know. So I'm gonna reach out to her, and then we'll have an answer by next meeting. And if we have to do this as a commission, then that's what we'll tackle, and we'll do it together,
So,
based on like the format of what the old one was.
You have
Did-
a soft copy? That's fine.
didn't this come up last year?
We didn't do a proof of
We didn't do it
performance,
there.
Right, and I
which is
think,
why we
For
didn't,
the last
because
year,
we
yeah.
didn't have a new checklist.
right.
And there was so many
I've
issues
already-
still going on with that license, so,
So it almost seems like the license will drive the checklist.
yes,
Okay.
for sure. But let me ask Mary for sure, because she'll know, so, all right,
And also the steps.
yes.
Now, do we have something to do with the checklist as well, too? Is this a time that we bring up any discrepancies that we find that we want them to look into?
No, it's just formatted from the license.
Okay.
And so the checklist just goes by their obligations, what we're supposed to oversee, forms that we're supposed to get. And then, like I said, in March, we send out these letters to, and Mary has all these letters, but we send these letters, each of the subcommittees will sign the letters, like technical and grievance and public access, and I think executive sign something, we send it to Comcast, and I believe they have the 60-day turnaround to provide all of this to us, and then we actually have the formal proof of performance at our May meeting combined into our regular meeting.
I remember that the first year I came in, you guys already sent it out. I came in, it was here
Right.
for review.
Okay, so, and then we didn't have one last year, which is why I want to get this underway.
All right, so
All right, so
you'll,
you let me know if you find anything in there, but that's the way it's going to go, and I'm going to definitely ask Mary about this, because she will know for sure. Okay, new business. Does anybody have anything else they would like to bring up that wasn't brought up? Okay, let's see when our next meeting is going to be. I won't adjourn yet until they find something in the contract. Let me see when it is. February 14th. Ooh, that's gonna be problematic. I'm leaving early in the morning on the 15th for February vacation. Oh, boy. Let's see.
Yeah, that's an interesting day to have it on, too.
Valentine's?
There you go.
Yeah, that's an interesting night, huh?
21st?
The 14th, that's when it would be. I can't do the 20th, I'll be away. I mean, you can have it if you want to have the meeting. Well, I guess I can do it. I know it's going to be a squeeze there. I'll make sure I'm packed and ready. Is there any other conflict with anyone on the 14th?
No.
I think the 14th's out.
Huh?
I'm not gonna be around on the 14th.
You're not.
No.
So maybe that's a blessing in disguise.
Is there a problem with the 7th?
We can try for the 7th. Anybody have a problem with that?
I don't think so.
I mean, as long as Mary says it's okay.
Nothing that I'm counting yet.
7th would be good for me.
All right, let me ask her. There'll be another email. Change. It's all in one email. She loves my emails on Thursday, by the way. After a meeting. She's like, why does she want now? Okay, did we find anything in the contract?
There's nothing explicitly saying proof of performance.
Okay,
There's determination of breach that has a 30-day requiring, in the event the licensee shall respond to notice of default and to cure the default and take reasonable steps to cure the default within 30 days of the issuing authority is designed or its designee shall be promptly scheduling a public hearing within 14 days.
yeah.
And then
no,
there's
that's-
another 30-day after the public
Yeah,
hearing that
that's-
they have to
that's
respond to
not it,
that.
though.
But that,
David, didn't we have that in the last, was it in the last license, the proof of performance?
The performance, and there was a very specific discussion of performance in the last license, last contract, yes.
Well, whether it's in there or not, we're gonna be having it, so
Yeah.
we'll just have to figure out how we're,
Can you- I mean, we can dig through the contract to see what's in there.
what's that?
We can dig into the contract with more detail and find out if it's
Yeah,
spelled out. If
I'll
not,
definitely look into it more, for sure.
Something you can say, could you please return within 60 days with this new,
Yeah, I mean,
Mary has letters. She has the letters, they're already typed up.
oh, she has everything.
So the verbiage is already on there.
Yeah, she has
And
everything, for sure, yeah.
I can't see us having changed the time frame from contract to contract because,
No,
no, so,
no, it will be that same time frame, but it's just a matter of putting that checklist together. Because it's a different license, so. All right, so if there's nothing else, anybody have a motion to adjourn? Anybody? Nobody's adjourning? John's going to give us the motion, seconded by Mick. Discussion, all those in favor? Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And so I'll let you know for sure if it's going to be February 7th meeting, which will be the first Wednesday in February.